Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Chase. Hopefully, you're all doing well today. To any new signups to the WAP, thank you very much. Glad you're here. As always, nothing discussed in this video is financial advice. Please consult a registered financial advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Okay, I'm going to start this one off a little different, right? I'm going to show you guys a little different strategy I use. Going to hit these charts real quick. So, I'm thinking going into this, right, I'm thinking when I sit down at the computer, I'm like, okay, let's look quick. Like, where's the liquidity? Real quick. And we're just going to start with some initial markups, right? Okay, this low here. I see an imbalance here. I see liquidity here. Looking towards the upside. You had an imbalance here. It did fill fully. It fully filled. You came back up. You took liquidity again. You could potentially have a liquidity level here, but the more local one would be here. Okay, seeing that, because look how we didn't sweep this. Okay, so there's no sweep here, there's no sweep here, so that is our local liquidity level. Now, I think that actually no, let's keep going, and then we'll come back and do each individually. Okay, moving on. Looking at F. Where do I see it? Relative equal highs here, I believe. Yeah, some equal highs here. So that's my liquidity level right here. Looking towards the downside, we don't really have too much more to sweep down here. What I'm seeing is we had equal lows, we swept those equal lows, and now we should be working our way back up towards to here. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. Looking at Solana, I think this low is quite obvious. Okay, I think we're headed towards that low. On the upside, I'm not seeing a ton. We're not even close to going back up here yet, but let me just start marking them. So you had this is basically the liquidity level. This was already swept. There could be something here. This was swept. So we would be thinking that if we did, and we'll take our first level, right? Like the first relevant level. If we did get down here somewhere, and I did post a tweet about this. So go look at the tweet. I sort of, we'll go over it here too, obviously. But the tweet has it laid out in a very easy to understand manner. Gonna let it do whatever it wants to do down here and then come back up. All right, but let's go back to Bitcoin and So that's like rapid fire liquidity thought process, right? We didn't really break down the charts there. We just took these levels and we say, okay, how can we interact with them? And now let's get into that. So what I've been saying is I don't think it's good if we get down into here. I still don't think it's good if we get down into here, but that doesn't mean we can't get a bounce, right? Doesn't mean we can't go into here and come up and go to this liquidity, right? A majority of this game is just going from liquidity to liquidity, and you hear me say it all the time, right? Liquidity to liquidity, before and after, blah, blah, blah. So a majority of it is just bouncing back and forth between these, areas of liquidity. So that would be my thought process at the moment for Bitcoin, is that we could be moving down to take out this low. Taking out this low, it really depends what I'm looking for in a trade here and which one I'm more confident in. Let's just see what the move is. So this move down into here would be about 3.5%. If you go over and look at Ethereum, I had an idea about coming back down into this demand. Okay, let me get my color back to where it was. There we go. So you had a low, then you put in an equal low, you swept it, and then demand forms here, right? Big origin of this move up. This is the last down move before this big move up here. So demand forms here. And if this is like 3.5% or something, I do think the Ethereum trade could be, so see, about 3.5%. So I think it's a matter of whether you wanted to take the Ethereum trade or whether you wanted to take the Bitcoin trade. I think they both look okay. It's tough to say which one's going to be better. If this is just going to be if this will just sweep quick and it'll just give you a nice clean bounce, or if it's going to be a painful, drawn out move, right? Something to chat about real quick, some education or some, just general alpha, right? So this is important, right? The reason I'm talking about, whether it's going to be a painful drawn out move or not, is because the last trade that we took, right? So we had taken the Bitcoin long off of this low, okay? Hit it perfect, right? It's perfect entry, perfect exit. Now, there'll be people who say, okay, but your original target was the highs or equal highs, right? And even though I ended up with about 1.6 R between Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it could have went to, let's say, 3 R, right? And that could still happen because the trade had not invalidated. But look at this move. It took place in, we got filled and we got out in a single day, right? Got filled, got out in a single day, good profit, 1.5 R, good trades, right? Rather than sitting in this, whatever this pain has been now for a full week. You would have been sitting in pain for a full week, right? And I don't say sitting in pain as in like, you're oversized. And I think no matter what, even if you're an extremely experienced trader and you're very comfortable, something in the back of your mind, if your position size is very comfortable, something in the back of your mind will always know that you're like in a position. And even if you're the most experienced trader, it might raise your stress level from 0% to just 1%, right? So I do think there's something to be said about, taking these positions. And if you're given a gift like this candle, right? Like, tell me that candle's not a gift. If you're given a gift like that, just take it. Why? In and out in a day. No stress. Enjoy the weekend. Everything's great. You would have been underwater. So, and I think there's also something to be said for that, just like in life in general, right? It's not just about being, getting a little bit out of trading. It's not about just increasing, your finances and your wallet and increasing your portfolio size, but it's about keeping your health, your physical, your mental, all that in check. And I think that if you're putting yourself in these positions where you could have took a quick 1.6 R and instead, you're going to draw out this position for 2-3 weeks, and you could take another trade in that time too, right? Just something to think about. And basically, I think the point of the conversation is that, this low, if we do get there, I'm not sure exactly how it will operate. And if we get into this box, it could be a little drawn out. And I'm trying to think which one would offer the better trade opportunity. I think the invalidation is probably a bit more clear on Ethereum. I think you just want to see this level hold, right? Stop below here. You could give it a little wiggle, right? Because knowing crypto, sometimes it could just do a little something and go, just like it did here, how it took out that little sweep and then it bounced. You only got a little bounce, right? But it swept it by like $1, right? So, you could do this low plus a little bit extra, right? If you really want to be invalidated fully. That's, just a little trick right there, I suppose. But yeah, ultimately, I think you get something like this. You come into here, you go up to liquidity, you take these equal highs, and then we'll have to see from there. Knowing that if Bitcoin got into here that I'm not that bullish, it's possible that that would be, your short right there or above here, one or the other, and then could come back down to, go for the impulse, which seems crazy, but I'm not seeing too much other liquidity unless we're to go much higher. So, but we'll take that as it comes, right? You guys know me. I look for pretty much like level to level trade. Take what's in front of me, and then we'll go from there. Looking at Solana. So again, the most recent liquidity that we have taken would be this consolidation. Puts in a high here, comes up and sweeps it. I think you have a pretty clear target at 137. A retest going on to like a lower time frame. A retest of this area could be a potential short. I'm not huge on shorting crypto since this bull trend started. You probably noticed that I don't even post my shorts anymore because it's just such negativity anytime I do. But regardless of that, I would say probably 75 or 80% of my positions since this bull trend started have been long since 42K. So if I was to short, I'd probably half size it rather than full sizing it, right? And there's an argument there too as to whether, you're, nonetheless, this is like, obviously this is a downtrend here, right? We are seeing a downtrend, but, it just seems like when you go to short crypto, it loves to squeeze. So you got to be careful with that. Typically, you want to find just really good shorts are the ones where like a lot of levels get blown out at once, and it just wicks up to here and then immediately nukes back down. Like those are your good ones, but they're often hard to find. They're a little bit few and far between. So possible short on the lower time frame, right? If you understand that type of stuff, you sort of just have a. So you had a high here. You swept the high. After sweeping the high, you formed a fair value gap. This is a pretty textbook, ICT setup essentially. You would retest into there, and that would be your down move. But again, like I said, we have to see how things open when we get closer towards the New York Open, see what things are looking like. There's a reason I don't really talk too much about these lower time frame trades, because a lot can happen on the hourly, right? So right after I make this video, right, we could bounce up into here, and we could start doing a consolidation, and we could test the level again. And the level's the level, right? It could hold. You can tap a level 20 times and it can still hold, right? That's very possible. But again, if it does test it once, if it tested twice, if it tested 3 times, I'm probably not looking to short it anymore, right? It's just, the more you test the level, the more likely it is to break, okay? It doesn't get stronger, it gets weaker. So something to keep in mind, just when talking about these low time frame ideas, and I said most of these videos will be focused on daily and 4 hour, so it can actually relate to you guys. But when you're looking at this low time frame stuff, keep in mind that local price action does change a potential trade, okay? Outside of that, let's talk about a potential long position for Solana based off of the daily time frame. 4 hour time frame as well would be you can look at. So let's say this is the sweep, you do a little pullback, right? You come down, you go for daily liquidity here. I think that's a clean level. I'm personally not blind bidding this at the moment. I don't have any bids down here. I did at some point, but I really wanted this to just continue and like flush the shit out of this, and we didn't get that. So that's why I'm changing my thought process there. The plan is really to do this. I would like to see it, like I said, I'd like to see it come up into here, come down, and below here it can do whatever it wants, right? I'll let it, do this. I'll let it form another low. I don't care what it does. The point is that it reclaims with some type of strength, right? When it reclaims with this strength, that's when I look for something to form, whether it be, bullish market structure, whether it be a fair value gap, anything of that nature, right? And that's when I look for the pullback and the play to, whatever the liquidity would be. At that point, it looked like it would be like here if you really deviated hard. Okay, so that's, talking about reclaims too, that's something to keep in mind, is that a lot of people they think this is a reclaim, right? Like this is not a reclaim. You really want to see, a lot of people talk about reclaims and they're like, oh, look, it reclaimed. It reclaimed on the 5 minute. It could just be a deviation. Like you can't really get a big read on these levels if there's not a major reclaim, right? Let's see a major reclaim. Let's see it leave a gap behind. Let's see it consolidate. That's how you know that you should either buy the consolidation or a tap back into the fair value gap, okay? It's not about, so much of this or so much of the comments I see on crypto Twitter, not really in relation to me because I think I've sort of squashed it over the years, but so much is like, oh, it reclaimed the level. And I'm like, and I go and I look and it looks like this. I'm like, what? This isn't a reclaim. It's just the market's trying to decide. The market's trying to figure out whether it wants to, survive or whether it wants to die. Okay, that's not a reclaim. A reclaim is that. That's a reclaim. Okay. Now you start searching in here. You start searching within this leg for your pullback and your buy opportunity. Okay. So know what a reclaim is compared to, what survival is. It might survive. It might, it might not. It might die. Know the difference. Okay. And give it a candle or two, right? So you look at this and you're like, oh, well, it's a decent, it's a decent reclaim, right? It's not great. It only pushed above it, a couple of dollars. It's really nothing special. I would be looking for more like something, something strong, right? Like that'd be more of a better reclaim. But if the quote-unquote reclaim is here, right? And I think that's like a decent candle. If you were to get like another bullish candle here, and then like it consolidated like right in here, then you might be looking for a little sweep below there, and you could play that with like stop below here, something of that nature. But yeah, again, that's just, when it comes to these reclaim guys, you got to be careful, because a lot of reclaims are just fake outs and deviations, and you see it all the time. So if you're looking for a reclaim, really look for something strong. And if you see something strong, it's pretty simple. If you see a strong reclaim, let's do it from down here, better yet. If you see a strong reclaim, either just buy the consolidation if you're new and you don't know how to hunt for any re-entry, buy the consolidation, or you can buy, like I said, a pullback into a gap, or there's another scenario where, let's say there is some consolidation here and it's forming, go to my pin post, I believe it's the rinse video on YouTube, I just posted it recently. If you have some local time frame building up, some rinse, boom, rinse it, that little sweep right there, that's your entry, and then it'll go, okay? So again, some more techniques there to try to find on a little bit of a, reclaim lower time frame, not simply just a blind bid, okay, or blind asks, as I usually show you guys. Just, I'm usually just working off of key levels when I'm showing you these videos, but at the same time, I will try to, over time, show you some more techniques for some of the trading that I don't do on Twitter and, on here and CT, etc. The reality is just that a lot of that stuff is very up in the air. Things can change quickly, and I don't want to lead you to the slaughterhouse by telling you, oh yeah, short this level, but then you get some. Let's say you get this, you come down and you sweep both these lows right here, these little equal lows right here, and you start coming back up. I'm not interested in it anymore, because one of my partial targets would be gone. I think this is the clearest target down here, but I would use this as a partial TP. And for me, it's really about having clear targets when I go to enter a trade, okay? And also, if you had swept this liquidity, that could mean, and I wouldn't be taking this trade at all, right? I'm not really bullish on this at all until we get a sweep of this low. But if you swept these lows, then this little hourly fair value gap here might not have a fight against 4-hour equal lows, okay? And that's a good way to think about things too, right? Think about, okay, well, we have a daily support versus an hourly resistance, okay? Well, I think daily support is likely going to win. Okay, you can always take the time frames, prioritize the higher time frame, and give more weight to it. Okay, daily versus 4-hour, we think the daily is going to win. Weekly versus daily, we think the weekly level is going to win, and we're going to push up towards the, say, take the daily liquidity before we lose the weekly support. Okay, so prioritize it in that order and give more strength to the higher time frames. I'll take a sip of water. Trying to think if there's anything else to cover here, really. Just clear some of these off real quick. Everything one more time. Looking at Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, you do have local support here, but most of the time you are moving towards liquidity. That's typically what you're looking at. So you could bounce off of here and go towards this liquidity first, and then maybe it'd be a move down from there. That's something that's possible. Again, with Ethereum, I'd have to think that, because there is nothing to sweep over here, right? There is no low to sweep. There is no liquidity to take. It was just, we had already taken this liquidity, right? We swept it. That was our take profit. We got a perfect entry at the Pico low, took profit at the Pico top. Everything was perfect there. Then we came down and we swept again. You swept again, and now you're leaving these equal highs behind. So leaving the equal highs behind is, what could give me confidence for a relong here. I like that, right? Like you want to see this. Now, if this swept this, I'd have a bit less confidence, right? But since it didn't sweep it, and since we're leaving this behind, we would think that a pullback into the demand level, right? Because we swept, or equal low, we swept that, big bounce from it. The best bounce we've had yet. Retest into there could be good. If we take a fib, we look for a 618, 705 retrace right in there, right at the top of this as well, right around 3460. Okay, so that's potential idea, as I said, for Ethereum. And again, guys, right, you don't need to litter your charts with a million lines. I told you this in the last one. Just keep it clean, okay? We had equal lows, we swept them. We have a high here. We didn't sweep this high yet after sweeping these equal lows. You would think that some type of pullback here should be a good long opportunity to take out these highs, okay? And onto Solana, I think it's just pretty clear that you see, going back onto the daily, right? We want to start in the daily chart. It's the best place to start. It's the best place to form our bias and our thesis, and then we can break down to lower time frames in order to find our trades. We would think that this low, and this is sort of like a liquidity trap here on this candle, right? You put this low in, and people buy this, and they think, oh, the bottom's in. But I think it's unlikely. I think that what you're doing here is you're building up liquidity here, you're building up liquidity here. So when we do come down below here, you get a nice cascade, right? So I think this is your this is your clear target here. And like I said, I don't really have a clear level I'm interested in bidding anymore. I think I'm just looking to let it do whatever the hell it wants down here, right? Doesn't matter what it does. Looking for the reclaim, and that's a little bit of a strong reclaim, right? But looking for a reclaim, and then looking for something to form within here, whether it's liquidity buildup, whether it's a gap, right? Liquidity buildup. There's your liquidity buildup. Boom, and right into the gap. And that's where you get your entry. You play it back to this liquidity right there, okay? So something of that nature is what I'm looking for on Solana. So I guess we covered every asset twice, pretty much, just to, re-go over the ideas there and just clean them up, right? Because guys, when I record these videos, I don't do all the charts ahead of time. And I don't think giving a PowerPoint presentation to you guys is the way that to connect with other traders. I think you need to be able to see the thought process rather than just the finished product. If I come on and just give you the finished product, then how do you ever come to these levels yourself, right? How do you come to these ideas yourself if I just come on here and say, okay, well, the liquidity's here, the entry's here, and the target's here, the stop's here, right? I know that's what some people are probably, all about. Everyone loves a signal, even though, I said specifically that this isn't necessarily a signal group. Mostly ideas, trading ideas, updates, education, right? So yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's good that I don't fully go over these before I present them to you, because I think that's how, you'll connect to the ideas and be able to form these ideas yourself in the future for one day when I'm no longer doing these. Okay, so thank you very much to everyone who's a part of this. Hopefully this video has been helpful. Please go to the tweet that I put on Twitter and leave your comments, your feedback there. And yeah, thanks everybody. Talk to you soon.